Our first scripture reading comes from Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 2, verse 12 to chapter 3, verse 18. It's on page 1238 in your NIV Bibles, page 1005 in the RSV Bibles if you choose. Now hear the word of the Lord. When I came to Troas to preach Christ's gospel, the Lord gave me an opportunity to preach. But I was worried because I couldn't find my brother Titus there. So I said goodbye to them and went to Macedonia. But thank God, who is always leading us around through Christ as if we were in a parade. He releases the fragrance of the knowledge of him everywhere through us. We smell like the aroma of Christ's offering to God, both to those who are being saved and to those who are on the road to destruction. We smell like a contagious dead person to those who are dying, but we smell like the fountain of life to those who are being saved. Who is qualified for this kind of ministry? We aren't like so many people who hustle the word of God to make a profit. We are speaking through Christ in the presence of God, as those who are sincere and as those who are sent from God. Are we starting to commend ourselves again? We don't need letters of introduction to you or from you like other people, do we? You are our letter, written on our hearts, known and read by everyone. You show that you are Christ's letter, delivered by us. You weren't written with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God. You weren't written on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. This is the confidence that we have through Christ in the presence of God. It isn't that we ourselves are qualified to claim that anything came from us. No, our qualification is from God. He has qualified us as ministers of a new covenant, not based on what is written, but on the Spirit, because what is written kills, but the Spirit gives life. The ministry that brought death was carved in letters on stone tablets. It came with such glory that the Israelites couldn't look for long at Moses' face, because his face was shining with glory, even though it was a fading glory. Won't the ministry of the Spirit be much more glorious? If the ministry that brought condemnation has glory, how much more glorious is the ministry that brings righteousness? In fact, what wasn't glorious isn't glorious now because of the glory that is brighter. If the glory that fades away was glorious, how much more glorious is the one that lasts? So, since we have such a hope, we act with great confidence. We aren't like Moses, who used to put a veil on his face, so that the Israelites couldn't watch the end of what was fading away. But their minds were closed. Right up to the present day, the same veil remains when the Old Covenant is read. The veil is not removed because it is not taken away by Christ. Even today, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their hearts. But whenever someone turns back to the Lord, the veil is removed. The Lord is the Spirit, and where the Lord's Spirit is, there is freedom. All of us are looking with unveiled faces at the glory of the Lord, as if we were looking in a mirror. We are being transformed into the same image, from one degree of glory to the next degree of glory. This comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. Our second reading comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 34, verses 29 through 35. You can find this on page 97 of your NIV Bibles, or page 77 of the RSV Bibles. Moses came down from Mount Sinai. As he came down from the mountain, with the 2 covenant tablets in his hand, Moses didn't realize that the skin of his face shone brightly because he had been talking with God. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw the skin of Moses' face shining brightly, they weren't afraid to come near him. But Moses called them closer. So Aaron and all the leaders of the community came back to him, and Moses spoke with them. After that, all the Israelites came near as well, and Moses commanded them everything that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. When Moses finished speaking with them, he put the veil over his face. Whenever Moses went into the Lord's presence to speak with him, Moses would take the veil off until he came out again. When Moses came out and told the Israelites what he had been commanded, the Israelites would see that the skin of Moses' face was shining brightly. So Moses would put the veil on his face again until the next time he went in to speak with the Lord. The word of the Lord.
Yeah. Nathan was reading. If you haven't met Nathan yet, he's our student pastor for the summer, so make sure you get a chance to say hello. When he was reading 2 Corinthians, I leaned over to Pastor Aaron and I said, my gosh, the Apostle Paul is so verbose, right? Like, how do you not get lost in that? It's just like over and over. So I'm giving you permission. Maybe you're better than I am. Maybe I'm not an auditory learner enough. It's really hard to follow him. We'll come back to it and maybe make some sense out of it. But before that, my favorite novel of all time for me is a lesser-known work of fiction by C.S. Lewis called Till We Have Faces. I don't know if anyone is familiar with it. It's a retelling of the myth of Cupid and Psyche, right? So the original story goes like this. Psyche is a girl that's so beautiful that men revered her more than the goddess Venus. And Venus grew jealous. And so Venus ordered her son Cupid to punish Psyche. But Cupid fell in love with Psyche. And Cupid promised Psyche a beautiful palace and great intimacy, but there was one catch. No one would be able to see it except the two of them. It would be cloaked or veiled, right? And to top it off, Cupid forbade Psyche to see his face. So Lewis retells this story. Not in the middle. It's very disconcerting. So Lewis retells the story from the perspective of Orual, a person he makes up Psyche's older sister. They are daughters of the king, and Orual is as ugly as Psyche is beautiful. And she also loves her younger sister Psyche more than anything. And in this version of the story, the god of the mountain, which is not named but is alluded to as being the Cupid figure, the god of the mountain is perceived to be angry, and the kingdom, with the blessing of their father, has decided to sacrifice the beautiful princess Psyche in order to please the god of the mountain. And they figure, the whole kingdom figures, that either she will be taken as the god's wife, or the god will kill her. So Orual is beside herself in grief at the loss of her younger sister. And she decides to travel up the mountain to see if her sister is indeed alive or dead. She finds her sister alive and well. And her sister is talking about this god husband, although she doesn't call him Cupid, right? She tells Orual about the palace and the intimacy, and Orual believes that her sister has gone mad, right? Because she can't see the palace or anything. But Psyche persists about how wonderful her life is and that she's happier than ever. And this makes Orual jealous also because she misses Psyche. And she doesn't understand why Psyche would choose the faceless god and this fake world that she sees over coming home to be with Orual in the kingdom. So Orual pleads with her sister, tries to get her, because she really thinks she's mad, right? Orual convinces Psyche that her husband must be a horrible, horrible creature, and that's why she's not allowed to see his face. So she concocts a scheme for Psyche to take a lantern to bed with her and to catch a glimpse of her husband, the god's face. And the result is that Psyche is banished from the god. She lost everything because she didn't trust what she couldn't see. Orual returns to their kingdom where their father eventually dies and Orual becomes queen, and she decides to put a veil over her face so that people could not look at her. So the similarities between her and the god of the mountain begin to take shape. The veil keeps things unknown. The veil also gives her a bit of courage, actually, to be something that she didn't think she could become, queen of the kingdom. The veil also conceals her from herself. And the question that Lewis is getting at with his novel is revealed toward the end, and I'll tell you, I left plenty of things out, so go read it. You can even borrow my copy. It's fantastic. The question that Lewis is getting at is revealed kind of toward the end. He writes this question: how can the gods see us face to face until we have faces? So I have to wonder if this myth that I love so much helps me understand and might help us understand what Paul is getting at when he says that we look at the glory of the Lord with unveiled faces. And then we are being transformed into that glory, a little bit at a time. Now, Paul compares it to the people who followed Moses, which is why we read the Exodus passage, right? The people actually wanted Moses to cover his face. They didn't like the shiny thing. They didn't know what to do with the shiny thing. They were afraid of the shiny face. So Paul compares this passage. It's Paul's midrash, essentially, on the Exodus passage. They wanted Moses to cover his face. They were uncomfortable with the glory that they saw on Moses' face. And Paul is not so much arguing one covenant over another. He's advocating for a face-to-face relationship with God and with one another. Moses met with God face-to-face. We learn in the chapter right before what we read. He met God face-to-face, which means as one would talk with a friend. And the Christians in Corinth were following the way of Jesus, who modeled an intimate, authentic, unveiled, face-to-face relationship with God. So Paul is advocating meeting face-to-face. David Frederickson from the Luther Seminary says, there is something infinite about the human or even the divine face. He says, imagine a friend sitting across from you, right? You're at a table, and you're looking at your friend's face, and you can see the thousands of movements, right, that we all do when we talk to one another, right? Your face changes, and then my face changes as a result of your face changing, right? I see your eyebrow go up, and then I wonder, right? And so I just change my face. You see that? There's like, so even if you're studying a person's face, you're never going to know everything that's going on there because it's constantly changing, right? But at the same time, if we're able to sit face to face and really look at one another, right? If you think about the people that you know most intimately, like you know where their freckles are, right? Or you know where their crow's feet are, and when they started to develop there, right? I mean, like you know where their scars are, right? I mean, that's the best stuff, isn't it? I mean, if you think about any intimate relationship that you have, all the little stuff, and even I would argue like the ugly stuff or the icky stuff or the not perfect stuff, that's the best stuff, right? But you gotta know, you have to sit face to face to know that, to find those things. If we study our friends' faces, we can learn what they're thinking or trying to express even, right? We can study faces, but faces change forever because they're always reacting to the faces that are also forever changing in front of them. We change with one another. So an unveiled encounter has infinite possibilities. It is forever changing, and therefore forever new, right? And then to add to it, when we look into the eye of another, right? If we're looking long enough, we can see ourselves in their eyes, and then they can see us in their eyes, right? And we create this kind of hall of mirrors in our eyes, if we were able to see it. Paul is essentially saying that when we dare to live unveiled before God, before one another, we are promising an unending search that always uncovers something new. That, to Paul, is the new covenant. It's not another covenant or a better covenant or a better law. It's a new covenant. It's meant to be ever newing. It's meant to be ever changing. Every time we come to it, it is a new place, a new start, a new day. That's the new covenant. The new covenant is a promise of new, of change, of transformation, of becoming more glorious, right? So we with unveiled faces become glorious as we see God's glory, going from glory to glory. So how can the gods see us? How can the gods know us? How will we ever know one another? How will we ever be seen unless we have faces, right? We must dare to take off our veil, to take off our false selves, the lies that we tell ourselves, the lies that we tell others to conceal our humanity, what we live with, the flaws or the freckles or the scars, right? We have to dare to show those things. And so might we live face to face with God and with one another.